What if the true path to happiness doesn't lie in acquiring more, but in letting go? As we step into our 60s, the pursuit of freedom, health, and fulfillment shifts away from external gains and focuses more on internal liberation. This is a time to embrace simplicity, to rid ourselves of the unnecessary weight we've carried for so long, and to begin the most memorable chapter of our lives. It's a time to rediscover what it truly means to be at peace with oneself. Ancient wisdom tells us that by the time we reach 60, we should learn to listen, truly listen, not just to others but to the quiet whispers of our own heart. By 70, we are encouraged to live in alignment with our true selves, free from the pressures that once guided us. But how do we achieve such clarity and peace? The answer lies in the art of letting go. To experience the calmness of a clear, flowing stream, we must release the clutter that clouds our vision. By clearing away the unnecessary, we open space for what truly matters, embracing a life of authenticity and tranquility. So, what should we let go of as we move into this new stage of life? In fact, as we approach 60, there are 8 things we must avoid doing, as they can diminish the quality of life we deserve in these golden years. These choices, while often subtle, have a profound impact on our well-being and peace of mind. Let's explore these vital lessons that will guide us toward a more fulfilling, joyful existence. 1. Don't overworry about your children or grandchildren. There's an old saying, children and grandchildren have their own destinies. It's easy to fall into the trap of worrying excessively about the future of those we love, particularly when it comes to our children or grandchildren. But what if, instead of draining ourselves in worry, we could step back and let them navigate their own paths? Life, especially in younger generations, is unpredictable, filled with ups and downs, successes and setbacks. It's tempting to intervene and offer solutions, but our excessive worry or over-involvement often does more harm than good. Sometimes, what they need most is space to grow and the freedom to make their own mistakes. Take the example of Jennifer, a successful businesswoman in her late 30s. Jennifer's parents, Paul and Linda, had always been deeply concerned about her career. They felt she was too immersed in work and not focused enough on her personal life. For years, they suggested she move closer to home, settle down, and take things slower. Despite their well-meaning advice, Jennifer found herself even more stressed, feeling like she was being pulled in 2 different directions. It wasn't until she moved across the country to start her own company that she truly flourished. The distance allowed her to find her independence, embrace her dreams, and build a life that was meaningful to her. She realized that by giving her space, her parents had allowed her the freedom to make choices, fail, learn, and ultimately succeed in a way that felt authentic to her. For parents or grandparents, it's natural to want the best for our loved ones. We often feel that by intervening, we can steer them toward a more secure or prosperous future. But as we age, it's crucial to recognize that the most valuable thing we can offer our children or grandchildren is not just material wealth or resources, but the foundation of strong values. Values like resilience, self-discipline, and independence. These are the treasures that truly shape lives and offer long-lasting benefits. After all, every individual is responsible for their own journey, and no one can live it for them. Instead of obsessing over every choice our children or grandchildren make, let's focus on securing our own future with wisdom and foresight. By ensuring our own well-being in later years, we can provide the kind of support that comes not from interference, but from love and understanding. We don't want to reach the end of our lives and regret not having planned wisely for ourselves. Instead, let's embrace the freedom of letting them forge their own path, knowing that we have equipped them with the values that matter most. 2. Don't be too soft-hearted. In life, it's common for some individuals to take on the role of the benevolent Samaritan, always willing to lend a hand or fulfill any request, no matter how unreasonable. While this may seem like a noble trait, it often brings unnecessary stress and opens the door to exploitation. Sometimes, our kindness can become a double-edged sword, leading us into situations where we're taken advantage of, often at our own expense. Take the case of Robert, a retired man living in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio. Known for his generosity, Robert would often help his neighbors, running errands, lending money, or offering assistance in any way he could. His kind acts were praised by everyone, and he quickly became the go-to person for anyone in need. But as time passed, his goodwill started to backfire. One day, after returning from a brief vacation, Robert came home to find that his house had been broken into. Several valuable items, including his laptop, some jewelry, and a collection of rare books, were missing. When the police investigated, they discovered that the thief was a young man named Jason, who had recently moved into the neighborhood and had been a regular visitor at Robert's house. Jason had borrowed money from Robert multiple times and, sensing the elderly man's vulnerability, had planned the theft. Robert's story is a powerful reminder of the importance of setting boundaries. Especially as we grow older, it's easy to get caught up in the desire to help others. But sometimes, our instinct to be kind can lead to situations where we put ourselves at risk. While it's important to be compassionate, it's equally crucial to recognize when someone's requests are unreasonable or when we're being taken advantage of. As we age, we need to become more discerning about where we invest our time and energy. It's essential to learn how to say no without guilt, especially when doing so is necessary to protect our well-being. Being too generous can attract individuals who see us as easy targets, and that's a risk we should avoid. Let's take a page from Robert's experience and start focusing on self-preservation. Protecting our peace of mind, safety, and resources should be a priority, especially as we enter the later years of our lives. This doesn't mean becoming cold-hearted or unkind, but it does mean learning to say no when necessary and recognizing that we don't have to fulfill every request in order to be loved or respected. Our time, energy, and possessions are valuable. Let's use them wisely. 3. Don't be blindly optimistic. At any age, we can fall into the trap of excessive optimism, especially when it comes to our relationships with loved ones. We may have the tendency to give people the benefit of the doubt, offering unconditional kindness regardless of how they treat us. However, this blind optimism can often lead to disappointment and even betrayal. While optimism can sometimes be a beautiful outlook on life, when taken to extremes, it can open the door to manipulation, exploitation, and a lack of respect. Consider the case of Susan, a retired woman living in Charleston, South Carolina. Throughout her life, Susan had been the epitome of kindness. She always believed the best in others, even when their actions didn't always deserve it. This trait was especially evident in her relationship with her son, Ethan, who, despite being an adult, had never quite settled into a stable career or lifestyle. Susan, ever the optimist, would often bail Ethan out of financial troubles, buy him things he didn't need, and give him endless chances to prove himself. She believed that if she just supported him enough, he would eventually find his way. In her heart, Susan thought her unconditional love would lead to positive change. But despite her generosity, Ethan continued to make poor decisions, never taking responsibility for his actions. Eventually, Susan discovered that Ethan had been borrowing money from her and lying about how he was using it. Not only was he squandering her financial support, but he was also taking advantage of her trust. Susan's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of excessive optimism when it comes to relationships. While optimism can be a source of hope, it can also cloud our judgment, especially when dealing with people who repeatedly demonstrate a lack of respect or responsibility. Unconditional kindness can easily be mistaken for weakness, and some people, like Ethan, may take advantage of it. It's important to remember that while we can be supportive and loving, we must also establish clear boundaries. Blind optimism can lead to situations where we allow others to take us for granted, draining our energy and resources. As we grow older, we need to be more discerning about who we invest our time and emotions in. It's okay to believe in people, but it's also important to recognize when we're being taken advantage of. Instead of offering unconditional optimism, consider being more realistic in your relationships. Support your loved ones, but also encourage them to take responsibility for their actions. The goal should be to cultivate healthy relationships built on mutual respect and accountability, not just one-sided, blind faith. In this way, you can protect your own emotional well-being while still offering love and support to those who truly deserve it. 4. Don't obsess over socializing. True friendships are rare gems. While we may encounter countless people throughout our lives, the number of those who truly understand and trust us is minuscule. Making friends is a natural part of life's journey. But as we age, we begin to realize that not every social interaction is meaningful, and that superficial connections can often leave us feeling emptier than before. Socializing becomes less about quantity and more about quality as we grow older. And it's crucial to be discerning about the relationships we cultivate. Take the case of Frank, a 62-year-old retired schoolteacher from Cleveland, Ohio. Throughout his younger years, Frank was a social butterfly, always eager to meet new people and form connections. He would attend every party, every gathering, and every event, convinced that a busy social life was the key to happiness. His calendar was filled with social obligations, and he believed that having a large circle of acquaintances was an indication of success. However, as Frank reached his 60s, something began to change. He started to feel overwhelmed and disconnected. Despite having dozens of people he interacted with, he realized that few of them were people he could truly rely on or trust. The friendships he had cultivated were often surface level, built on shared interests that had little depth or emotional resonance. Many of his so-called friends were quick to ask for favors but rarely offered support in return. He found himself increasingly exhausted by constant socializing, attending events that drained his energy without providing any real fulfillment. One turning point came when Frank was invited to a high school reunion. As he walked into the venue, he realized that many of the people he once called friends had barely changed, still stuck in the same patterns of conversation, gossip, and small talk. He felt a sense of disconnection. Despite being surrounded by familiar faces, Frank felt more alone than ever. This realization hit him hard. The need to constantly be around people had blinded him to the fact that true connections, those rooted in mutual respect, trust, and shared values, were far more important than a crowded social calendar. Frank's story is a powerful reminder that as we grow older, we must reassess our approach to friendships and socializing. It's not about how many people you know, but how deeply you connect with the few who truly matter. In our later years, we should prioritize relationships that bring us peace, joy, and mutual understanding. It's far more rewarding to invest in a small group of friends who are genuine and supportive than to maintain a large, but emotionally draining, circle of acquaintances. Rather than chasing after new social opportunities, we should focus on nurturing the friendships that have stood the test of time. These are the people who have been there for us through thick and thin, who truly understand us and accept us for who we are. As we age, it becomes essential to surround ourselves with individuals who uplift us, who encourage us to grow, and who provide us with a sense of emotional security. It's not the number of friends that matters, but the depth of the connection we share with them. This shift in perspective will allow us to find contentment in our social lives, free from the pressure to constantly seek out new interactions. In the end, the relationships that matter most are the ones built on trust, empathy, and shared experiences, qualities that cannot be rushed or forced. So, as we move through our 60s and beyond, let us focus on creating lasting, meaningful friendships that enrich our lives, rather than simply accumulating more names on a list. 5. Don't overvalue family ties. As we grow older, the bond with family members often deepens, shaped by nostalgia and the natural tendency to seek comfort in familiar faces. This attachment to our loved ones, however, can sometimes cloud our judgment and lead us to overlook important red flags. While it's natural to cherish family relationships, an over-reliance on them can sometimes lead to unhealthy dependence and even exploitation. It's crucial to understand that blood ties don't always guarantee loyalty, and at times, strangers can prove to be more reliable than family members. Consider the story of Emily Davis, a 68-year-old widow living in a small town in Vermont. Emily had always been a family-oriented person, After the passing of her husband 5 years ago, she found solace in her 2 grown children, Sarah and Michael, who lived nearby. She would often spend afternoons at their houses, trying to stay active and involved in their lives. For Emily, her children were her rock, the ones who would care for her in her later years, just as she had cared for them when they were young. However, over time, Emily began to notice subtle shifts in her relationship with Sarah and Michael. Both of them had busy lives. Sarah was a successful lawyer working long hours in the city, and Michael had his own family to care for. Emily's needs, once easily met by her children, were now becoming a source of tension. She felt increasingly like a burden, despite her attempts to stay independent. One afternoon, Emily reached out to Sarah, asking for help with some paperwork. She hadn't heard from her daughter in a week, and she felt neglected. Sarah, who had been overwhelmed with work, apologized but couldn't make it over until the weekend. Emily, disappointed but understanding, waited patiently. However, when Sarah finally arrived, Emily's disappointment grew into frustration. She realized that over the past few months, her relationship with her children had become strained, and she felt as though her needs were an afterthought. Emily had always assumed that her family would be there for her, but the reality was different. Over time, she came to recognize that family ties, no matter how strong, could not always provide the unconditional support she needed. She found herself increasingly isolated, feeling disconnected from her children and unsure of where to turn. It was then that Emily began to build new connections. She started volunteering at the local community center, where she met Carol, a woman in her 60s who had recently relocated to Vermont. They quickly became close friends, sharing stories and offering support. Carol, though not family, proved to be more present and reliable than Emily's own children at times. She helped Emily with errands, checked in on her regularly, and provided a sense of companionship that Emily had longed for. Through this experience, Emily learned a valuable lesson. While family relationships can provide comfort and familiarity, they should not be the sole source of our emotional well-being. Overvaluing family can lead to unmet expectations, frustration, and disappointment. In some cases, people outside of our immediate family, friends, neighbors, even acquaintances, can offer a level of support that family members may not be able to provide. As we age, it's essential to broaden our support network and not limit ourselves to family. Cultivating meaningful friendships and building connections with others can help us create a more balanced and fulfilling life. Emily's story reminds us that while family is important, it should not be the only source of our happiness or security. Embracing the possibility of finding support and care from a variety of sources can lead to a richer, more satisfying experience in our later years. 6. Don't overlook the importance of saving money. No matter how old we are, the importance of saving money cannot be overstated. This principle remains true throughout life because financial security forms the foundation of confidence. Especially after retirement, having savings is not just about having a cushion for emergencies. It's about maintaining autonomy, dignity, and peace of mind. For older adults, ensuring financial independence can be the difference between a life of comfort and one marked by stress and constant worry. Take the case of Jack Patterson, a retired teacher living in Tucson, Arizona. Jack had spent his entire career teaching middle school, inspiring generations of students. However, like many, he had neglected the importance of saving for his retirement years. He had always lived modestly, prioritizing enjoying the present moment over thinking about the future. When he retired at 65, he received a small pension, but it was far from enough to cover his healthcare needs, especially given the increasing costs of medical treatments and medications. Jack's savings were minimal, and he found himself struggling with the reality of his situation. The thought of paying for his doctor visits or medication was daunting, and it led to a pattern of ignoring small health issues. What started as occasional headaches or back pain slowly turned into more serious concerns. Jack didn't want to burden his children or ask for help, so he delayed seeing a doctor, hoping the issues would resolve on their own. But one afternoon, While playing golf with his longtime friend Tom, Jack collapsed on the course. He was rushed to the hospital and diagnosed with a serious heart condition that had been developing for months. Unnoticed. If he had sought medical advice earlier, perhaps the problem could have been caught and treated more effectively, saving him both time and money in the long run. Instead, his lack of savings forced him into a situation where his healthcare costs became overwhelming. Jack's experience is a stark reminder of the importance of saving money, particularly when it comes to healthcare. Without adequate savings, Jack found himself not only in a precarious financial situation, but also facing the regret of having delayed crucial medical care. It's easy to think that small issues don't warrant attention, or that we'll always have time to save for the future. But life has a way of surprising you, especially as we age. In contrast, consider the story of Karen Johnson, a retired nurse living in Florida. Unlike Jack, Karen had spent years contributing to her retirement savings. Aware of the inevitability of health issues in her later years, she had opened a separate health savings account when she was in her 40s, which allowed her to set aside funds specifically for future medical needs. When she developed arthritis in her knees at 67, Karen didn't hesitate to seek treatment. Because of her proactive approach to saving, she was able to visit specialists, undergo physical therapy, and receive treatments without worrying about the financial burden. Karen's preparedness gave her peace of mind, and she was able to continue enjoying her golden years without the constant fear of unexpected medical bills. She also had the freedom to travel and spend time with her grandchildren, knowing she had the financial stability to handle whatever health challenges came her way. The lessons from both Jack and Karen are clear. Saving money, particularly for healthcare, is an investment in both your future well-being and your peace of mind. When you have a financial safety net, you can live your later years with the confidence that you'll be able to handle medical needs without sacrificing your quality of life. The cost of healthcare is rising every year, and as we age, it becomes even more important to be financially prepared. So, no matter your age, take the time now to start saving for your future. Create a budget, set aside a percentage of your income, and invest wisely. The freedom to choose your healthcare, the ability to enjoy life's pleasures without financial worry, and the peace of mind that comes with knowing you can handle unexpected situations. These are the rewards of responsible financial planning. 7. Don't take your health for granted. Health is the most invaluable asset we possess, for it shapes our ability to truly enjoy life, especially as we grow older. It is the foundation upon which our sense of peace and well-being rests. Without good health, every other achievement loses its meaning, and life itself becomes a struggle rather than a journey. In our younger years, we may take health for granted, thinking we can always recover from a late night or a few days of poor diet. But as time passes, it becomes increasingly evident that neglecting our health in youth catches up with us in our later years. Take, for example, the story of Frank Miller, a 62-year-old retired engineer living in Portland, Oregon. Frank had spent his youth and middle years dedicating himself to his career. He worked long hours, attended countless meetings, and traveled frequently for work. As his 60s approached, Frank was proud of the professional success he had achieved, but he often overlooked his personal well-being. He skipped the gym in favor of late-night work and ignored his increasing stress levels. He thought his youthful vigor would carry him through life, even as his body started to show signs of wear. It wasn't until Frank had a routine checkup that he was confronted with the harsh reality. His blood pressure was high, his cholesterol was off the charts, and his doctor warned him that if he didn't make significant lifestyle changes, he could be at risk for heart disease or even a stroke. Frank was shaken to the core. He realized that his busy career and neglect of his health had come at a steep cost. He was faced with the unpleasant truth that without taking care of his body, his long-term happiness and independence could be jeopardized. But Frank wasn't alone in his struggles. His close friend, George, who was also a retiree in his early 60s, had taken a very different approach to life. George had always prioritized his health, even during his working years. He maintained a regular exercise routine, ate balanced meals, and took time to unwind from his busy days. His approach to life was not just about staying physically fit, but also cultivating mental and emotional balance. At 63, George was in better shape than many people half his age. He had more energy, better sleep, and had avoided many of the chronic health conditions that often plague older adults. George's example was a wake-up call for Frank. He realized that it wasn't too late to make changes, but he had to act quickly. Frank began a journey of transforming his health. He joined a local fitness group, reduced his work hours, and started prioritizing self-care. Most importantly, he learned the value of rest. His doctor emphasized that good health wasn't just about exercise and diet, but also about the ability to recover, sleep well, and take time for reflection. The difference between Frank and George highlights a profound truth. Health is not just something we have. It is something we cultivate. The choices we make today determine the quality of our lives tomorrow. As Frank learned the hard way, health issues can drain your finances and your energy, leading to a lower quality of life. The financial cost of healthcare, especially as we age, can often exceed what we ever anticipated, and the emotional toll of poor health is immeasurable. However, good health isn't only about preventing disease or illness. It's also about living a life full of energy, vitality, and mental clarity. For Frank, the decision to prioritize health transformed his life. Not only did he feel more energetic and present for his family, but he also discovered that by investing in his health, he had more to give to those around him. His relationships with his children and grandchildren deepened, as he had more time and energy to spend with them. The lessons from Frank's experience are simple but profound. We cannot take our health for granted, and we must make proactive choices to safeguard it as we grow older. The investment we make in our health today pays dividends in the future, not just in longevity, but in quality of life. We have one body and one life, and it is our responsibility to nurture both. In the end, health is the one thing that cannot be replaced, and without it, everything else loses its value. 8. Don't lose your temper with family members. As we age, maintaining harmony in our relationships becomes even more critical, especially with family members. It's natural for older adults to feel a sense of authority or entitlement, having lived many years and accumulated wisdom. However, this often leads to frustration and even outbursts, especially when younger generations seem to disregard advice or act in ways that don't align with our values. This tendency can create unnecessary tension and rifts in the family, leaving everyone feeling misunderstood or unappreciated. Let's take the example of John and his relationship with his daughter, Emily. John, a 68-year-old retired lawyer from Texas, had always been the family patriarch. Over the years, his sharp mind and decisiveness earned him a reputation as a man who knew what was best. However, as Emily, now in her 40s, started to raise her own family, she began making choices that didn't always align with John's traditional views. While John believed in strict discipline and adherence to certain values, Emily preferred a more modern, flexible approach to parenting. One evening, during a family gathering, Emily's children misbehaved, and John couldn't contain his frustration. He criticized Emily in front of the family, raising his voice about how she was raising her children. Emily, embarrassed and hurt, tried to explain her perspective, but John's temper flared, and he dismissed her reasoning. The tension in the room was palpable, and the evening, which should have been filled with joy, ended in silence and discomfort. John was left feeling justified, but also lonely, realizing that his actions had caused a rift between him and his daughter. Emily, on the other hand, felt dismissed and disconnected from her father, despite all the years of mutual love and respect they had shared. The situation with John and Emily is an example of how, as we age, our relationships with family members can easily become strained if we don't take the time to listen and empathize with those around us. Often, the wisdom that comes with age should not be wielded like a weapon but shared like a gift. The key to preserving harmony in family dynamics is patience, understanding, and the willingness to adapt. Instead of jumping to conclusions or reacting harshly, Taking a deep breath and trying to see things from the other person's perspective can go a long way in maintaining peaceful, loving relationships. Family, despite its challenges, is often one of the greatest sources of comfort as we grow older. It's in these relationships that we find support, joy, and a sense of connection. But if we don't exercise restraint and compassion, we risk driving a wedge between ourselves and those we love. The secret to maintaining these valuable bonds is not about proving who is right, but about valuing the relationship itself. So, the next time a disagreement arises, remember that your time with family is precious. Let go of the impulse to control, to criticize, or to dominate. Instead, listen more, empathize more, and allow space for growth and understanding. After all, life is fleeting, and it's the connections we foster that provide us with the deepest fulfillment as we age. What are your thoughts on the habits that can shorten your lifespan after you turn 70? Have you ever noticed how certain behaviors or routines can impact your health and longevity? Share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Let's discuss how we can avoid these habits and live our best lives after retirement. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon so you never miss a video. Let's keep the conversation going and continue exploring ways to improve our lives together.